This is Let's Talk Football on the sportshacks.com, and this is a rarity. We are delighted to welcome one of the most interesting characters I've come across in my time in football, a man who lives not too far down the road from me in the county of Meath, and a man whose story we're delighted to bring to an Irish stage because I think it's a story that deserves to be told and a story that deserves an audience. Erroll Sweeney, you're welcome.
Thanks, Carl. Good to be with you.
Tell us your backstory, Erroll, and how you first became interested in football. You're from Mornington in County Meath, and you're back after a life in South Africa. You're back living in Mornington. So, was football always part of the story in Mornington for you?
Slight correction there. Born and reared in Mornington, but now living in Bettystown, which is only up the road.
Only up the road. So,
but
well,
I was always interested.
Yeah, you're still County Meath.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I've always loved football. Played a little bit at amateur level. Local amateur level, and I was also at the time I was studying music with the late now Miss Crilly in Drogheda, and I had an exam coming up, I remember, and I got tackled. I was playing fullback, and I sprained my wrist. Not bad, but this was in September, and I had an exam coming up in November. So I thought, oops, I can't be having these kind of problems if I'm going to do my exams, etc., etc. So I stopped playing football. And at that time also, I was playing in the Drake Inn in Finglas with the late now, sadly, died earlier, Billy Hughes and the DJs in the Drake Inn in Finglas. And we were doing a few gigs there, and a very, probably Ireland's best referee at national and international level was John Carpenter. And we became friends. And he said to me one time in the Drake Inn, he said, why don't you join the referees? They're always looking for referees. And I thought, Billy Hughes and the DJs in the Drake Inn in Finglas. And John Carpenter was a reasonably regular visitor there. At that time, it was a singing pub. We used to call people up to sing and that sort of thing. And he loved to sing. And really was I think he fancies himself as a bit of a Frank Sinatra. So we called him up to sing, and I got to know him from that. And he said to me, why don't you join the referees? And I said, I don't know, join referee. And that's actually how I got started. And that was the 1970-71 season that I started refereeing at lower level, at the amateur league, mainly in the amateur league, but sometimes Leinster Senior and the AOL and others, or wherever we got matches from. And it sort of took off from there. And then I had a game in St. Anne's. It was the first round of the FAI Junior Cup, when all referees were doing 3 matches that weekend, Saturday and 2 on Sunday, Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon.
So many games to be played.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had a game, I did the Saturday one, and I was doing this Sunday morning one at Glebe North in Balbriggan. And I went over my ankle, and I heard the sort of crack snap, and the Glebe North guys were very, very good. They ran on and said, I think you have a problem with your ankle. I said, oh, what do you think? I said, can you strap it up for me? Because I have another match this afternoon, and I don't want to let them down. And so they did, and I got through that. And I went on to do the second game in St. Anne's Park. And who came out to see me but the one and only Charlie O'Leary.
Wow.
I'm glad to see is still around and has now passed his 100th birthday. So congratulations to Charlie. And would you believe it, the same thing happened to me about 5 minutes from the end. Went over on my ankle again, and Charlie O'Leary ran on. He said, I think you have a problem with your ankle. I said, Charlie, I have to finish this game. It was 5 minutes left. He said, I'll finish it for you. I said, no, I'll strap it up and I'll do it. And from that, I think he must have been impressed in some way. Because of that, then I was invited to the League of Ireland seminar at the start of the season, which generally means if you're invited and you pass all the tests, that you get on the League of Ireland panel. And that was my first trip onto the League of Ireland, 1975.
That's quite intriguing, Erroll, because they're 2 colossal men in the history of Irish refereeing. I mean, two very different statures, of course. Charlie, as he said himself, he played as a halfback, and manager of Bowes when he went on trial at Bowes, asked him where the other half was. So that'll tell you Charlie's size. And John Carpenter. I mean, John Carpenter was a famous referee and a big man. I mean,
Yeah.
he commanded the pitch, and Charlie commanded the
Yeah.
pitch in a different way. So they were fascinating role models, I'm sure, to have.
Oh, absolutely. I never got as far as John Carpenter did. John Carpenter, I think, if I recollect properly, I think he did one leg of the UEFA Cup
Correct.
at the time, going way back then. He did, because the UEFA Cup final was over two legs, and I think he got the first one. So he's probably our most famous, and rightly so, because he was our top referee.
Mm-hmm. And Charlie commanded the pitch in a different way, didn't he? I mean, he was half the size, and I'm not being disparaging to him, he'll tell you himself, but he was half the size of some of the players, but he had control of the game when he was in charge.
Oh yeah, they commanded great respect. But in those days, Carl, there was a lot of respect for referees. I mean, today, what's going on? I mean, you don't have to be a brilliant lip reader to see what the players are saying to the referees when they disagree with a decision. I mean, it's appalling, and the fact that they get a slight touch and go down, looking for free kicks, and for the most part, getting free kicks. But yet they're pulling and dragging, almost wrestling in the penalty area at the taking of a corner kick, and nothing happens. And to me, that is weak
unheard of back then when you started.
Weak referee.
But when you started, I mean, was that an immediate end to your playing career once you got into this and you started to like it, or what happened to the playing side of your game?
I did actually, yeah. I started to like the refereeing, and I gave up the playing part of it then, yeah. And plus, I was still doing music and playing music in the Draken, and I couldn't afford to have sprained hands because I play guitar, and I couldn't afford to have any injuries. So, yeah, I gave up the playing part and just concentrated on the refereeing. And that's the way with me. I either go into something 100% or not at all. And I couldn't be doing both because, well, there were sort of conflict of interest, if you like, being a player and then being a referee. So I decided to concentrate on the referee.
And the League of Ireland then, when did that begin for you? That first year you went to the forum, did you get games straight away, Erroll, or did you have to wait?
No. In those days, you had to wait. You ran the line for a good while. You ran the line before getting into the middle. You get lines in the Premier League, and you get games in what was then the B division, now the first division. And in fact, I did. Johnny Giles came over and signed for Shamrock Rovers, and I have a photograph actually where he was playing for Shamrock Rovers against Dundalk in Oriel Park, and the late Dominic Byrne was the referee for that match. So met a few people. Plus, of course, I ran the line at St. Patrick's Athletic one time when Rodney Marsh was playing for Pats, and he was quite a character, and he disagreed with some of my decisions and made it clear and known
in no uncertain terms.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in terms of refereeing, I mean, what was your style? What was your go-to?
I was very strict disciplinarian. I never looked for trouble, but I wasn't going to walk away from it. And some of the players would. I mean, today's a glorious day. They'll nearly convince you that it's raining if you let them get away with it. So I applied the law literally to the letter with a little bit of leeway, but the law is the law and the rules are the rules, and they have to be applied. And once you start deviating and being lax in the application of the laws of the game, players spot it immediately and they take full advantage of it. And I don't blame them for that. That's their job. Their job is to try and get the referee to make it, what's the word I'm looking for? Make a different decision than the decision that should be made. And they'll try and convince you of all kinds of things. We see it time and again nowadays. I think it's even worse nowadays with international football and European football, club football, and at national level. Players get up to all kinds of antics, and I'm sure they're told to do that by their managers and coaches. And even the managers and coaches, they're at it as well. And they're getting away with it.
Going back to the League of Ireland, I mean, how many seasons did you officiate in the league?
Not that many. Actually, I in a B division match in Dundalk, I sent off 4 players. It was Dundalk and Shelbourne because they were kicking lumps out of each other, and I sent off 4 players, and I was dropped. I was
No.
dropped because they said the powers that be at the time was both gentlemen now deceased, Pip Meehan and Kevin Redmond. And they said I was too strict. Well, if a fella kicks another fella, that's foul. That's violent conduct, and that's a red card in my book. So I don't see how I was too strict. But I was dropped for a couple of years, and then I got back on again. And and then the economy was very, very bad. You're too young to remember this, Carl. But,
You'd be surprised, Erroll.
in the 1980s, the economy was very, very bad here. And I had to do something. I was doing a bit of a job here and a bit of a job there, and there was a few bob coming in here and a few bob coming in there. Finally, we decided that we had to do something. My wife and I, we had 4 children at the time. And so we decided to go to South Africa. And my sister was already living there. And she said, well, look, I know you like to work for your money. You don't want handouts. And I don't want handouts, least of all from the government. So we decided to make the move, and we went to South Africa on a trip in 1983, and I just fell in love with the place. And I did 3 games out there while I was there on holidays. And they asked me, would I stay? And I said, hey, I got to go back to Ireland, you know.
I'm sorry, how did that come about? Did they know? Did your sister know somebody? Did people out there know that this referee from Ireland was coming over? Or?
No, I did my homework. I did my homework. I wrote to the football authorities out there, and the head of referees there was a man called Aubrey May, and I said, look, I'm coming out to South Africa. I'd like to get involved, even though I'm on holidays. And they said, well, yeah. He said, yeah. When you arrive, let me know. Contact me, and we'll see what we can do. So I did, and I contacted them, and I had a meeting with him. And he said, I can give you a game on Tuesday night if you're available. I said, absolutely. And I brought my gear with me in anticipation of possibly getting a game or two in there, then First Division, now Premier League. And he said, I'd like you to do 2 more games if you're available. I said, absolutely. And I did that. And after the 3 games, and he came to each game, and he said, I'm clapping myself on the back now, and I don't like doing it, but he said, we'd love somebody like you here. Our standard refereeing here is not great, and we'd like you to come in and maybe even coach some of the guys while you're here as well. So that was 1983, and came back home, and I said to my wife, we have to go there. There's work there, there's soccer there, there's money there, we can earn a living there.
There's opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So we went back in 1985.
Before you'd gone, I mean, how high up the refereeing ladder were you in Ireland? I mean, were you FIFA level, UEFA level?
You'd have to ask people that how high up. I only got the one international game, and then we decided we were going to South Africa, and apartheid being there, and South Africa being banned from all football. So that was the end of my international career, really. Only one game I got was at Real Madrid. We're playing Honved from Hungary. And it was a second round, the old Champions League, if you like.
The European Cup.
Eamon Farrell was the referee. Yeah. Eamon Farrell, the late Eamon Farrell, he was the referee of that. Kevin O'Sullivan was the other linesman.
And all, again, big names in the history of Irish refereeing. I mean, you're talking about,
indeed, yeah.
You're talking about the glory days, so we say, when they were getting representation abroad. I mean, it's only starting to come back now. So,
yeah,
the football in South Africa, as you said, they were under a sporting ban at the time. Did football feel isolated as a football community? Did they feel they were isolated at the time, or?
The football people did. They did. They sort of understood it in a way, but didn't agree with it. And I mean, when you see things that are going on today, without making comparisons, it possibly was wrong to ban them. Now, FIFA don't allow, or don't like or allow, any government interference in football.
Yes.
They don't allow. And they've threatened, in fact, I think at one time they did suspend Zimbabwe, the former Rhodesia, from international football because the government had fired the entire Zimbabwean Football Association for poor performances or whatever. But that was government interference and they didn't like it. And I'm not sure if they actually banned it, but they certainly threatened to ban them if the government didn't keep their nose out of the football side of it. So South Africa didn't want to be seen to be the South African government interfering in the game of football because at that time there was the apartheid system and there were four categories of people. So you had the whites at the top. You then had the what were known as coloureds, which was a mixture, say, a white man and a black woman. They were called coloureds. Then you'd have the Asian/Indian, which are Pakistanis, Japanese, Chinese. They were in the third category. And the last category then were the black people. They were at the bottom of the ladder. But although the football was being played by whites and they had their own white league, and that was imposed, if you like, by the government, that they weren't allowed to have any blacks in their teams. It was all white players, part of the apartheid system. The blacks were also playing football. And in fact, the Indian, Asian, if you like, grouping, they also had their own league. So there were several different leagues, but not competing wholly as one nation against each other. And that didn't happen, of course, until Nelson Mandela was released from prison and apartheid fell.
So could you have foreseen then a situation where South Africa would eventually host a World Cup?
No, I didn't think so. And you know, it was fantastic because they literally mortgaged the country to bring that World Cup to South Africa. The stadiums they built, which are now falling into disrepair, which is an awful, awful shame. But the stadiums they built, the infrastructure, the highways, and I was at a few of the games. In fact, I was at the famous one where, so was it
Uruguay?
Suarez handled the ball. Yeah. I was at that game in Johannesburg. But the stadiums are world class, and it is such a shame that they are now falling into disrepair because of lack of maintenance. But I could never, no, absolutely, I could never have seen South Africa hosting a World Cup.
In terms of refereeing, then, I mean, was it difficult as somebody coming over from Ireland to walk into this environment where there is such segregation and you know, today we see football as such an integral part of society, not just in South Africa, but right across the world. And football is integrated and football is for all. But it must have been very, very strange then, Erroll, was it, to go into that environment and see that at first hand?
It was strange for me, but I mean, I don't look at colours or anything like that. I just look at it as a game of football between two teams of 11. And the whole strictness of apartheid, where only whites could play against whites and blacks against blacks, etc., was falling away and was gradually being whittled down. And when I went back in 1985, when we went back in 1985, it had improved immeasurably from when I had been there 2 years earlier. And gradually those walls were being broken down and black players were playing with white players in the same team. And there were some very, very good players, by the way. There was a player called Jomo Sono who played with the New York Cosmos. And Kaiser Motaung, who owns Kaiser Chiefs, one of the top teams there in South Africa. They can pull in thousands and thousands of people. He played in America as well. So they were allowed to leave the country to play football. And gradually the whole apartheid thing, as far as the sport is concerned, was beginning to break down, and now players were playing against each other. And when I did their cup final in 1988, it was mixed teams. In fact, the majority were black players with a few white players thrown in here and there.
That 88 Cup final, this is 3 years after you've come back to the country in three. So, like, to get a cup final within that space of time was quite an achievement. And I know you're not going to pat yourself on the back again, but I mean, you must have been doing something right to get a cup final that quickly. And
Uh, Actually, not only that, Cahill, but the previous year, I ran the line I was fourth official in the same cup final. So yeah, I don't know. That was my style. Maybe they liked it. I was always very, very fit. I never, and still don't, drink or smoke. I like to keep fit. I trained regularly. I've also run a couple of not more than a couple of marathons. I ran the Dublin Marathon twice. I ran several marathons in South Africa, including an ultra marathon, which was 90 kilometers. So I was always fit, and I could run up and down the field, even in the heat. And heat there, if you're talking about Johannesburg is 5,500 feet above sea level. So the oxygen is quite thin. And I think that's why a lot of our rugby players, when they go out there, certainly to Johannesburg or even Pretoria, they're so far above sea level. They struggle a bit with the oxygen in the air and so on. But I trained regularly, so because of that and because I was pretty fit, I acclimatized quite quickly to it. And I was living in an area that was above sea level, so I was training in that environment as well.
Were you professional at this stage, or were you working as well, Erroll? Or?
Oh no, there's no professional refereeing there. Even to this day, there isn't.
Oh,
even to this day, there's no professional referees in South Africa, and they're only recently talking about bringing in VAR, and that's another story. They're only talking about that. So the league is the Premier Soccer League, but it's not fully. The players are professional, of course. The players are professional, but the referees are not, and they're just talking about it.
And what sort of crowds? I mean, that cup final, for example. I'm going to ask you a question about a name that you earned for yourself on the back of that cup final. But what sort of crowds would those big games get? I mean, what?
Everything depends on who's playing. I mean, you had Rovers and Bows playing last night, and Dalymount was full. But if Rovers were playing team at the bottom of the league, say Waterford, it wouldn't draw as big a crowd. So if you had the two top teams, like Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, playing in any match, never mind a cup final, the stadium would be absolutely jammers. Now that game, and I'm leading up to telling you my nickname, that game, 1988, apartheid was still there.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call. They had to try and keep the names of the referees secret for as long as they could, because there was still apartheid. Referees were some black referees living in the townships. They were open to intimidation and that kind of thing. And I got a phone call. This was the top game. This was Chiefs and Pirates. And I got a phone call on the Thursday night. Game's on Saturday now. The game's on Saturday. And I got a phone call on the Thursday night to tell me that I was the fourth official for this match. Right. And I was so excited because, like, I'd only been there 3 years. I was so excited. And on the Friday night, by the way, I was sworn to secrecy. I wasn't to tell anybody. So on the Friday night, I got a phone call at 10 o'clock. Now, you do not phone anybody in South Africa after 7 o'clock in the evening. Maybe 8, but certainly not at 10. So my phone rang at home, and it was the secretary of the league, a man called Erroll Sweeney, and he says, can you come to Johannesburg now to a meeting? Now, I was 80 kilometers from Johannesburg.
This is 10 o'clock on the Friday. This is 10 o'clock the night before the match.
Absolutely. And I said, Mr. Cobus, it's 10 o'clock. There's the cup final tomorrow. If I get up now, I'll have to get dressed and get into my car and drive to Joburg. Could take me an hour. Then a meeting could be half an hour or more. Then I have to drive home again. And the cup final is tomorrow. It's not a very good preparation for a cup final, albeit fourth official. he said, yeah, actually, I agree with you. He said, so let me read you a letter now from the committee. We've just had an emergency meeting. And I remember it well. It said, my name, and then the headline, the cup final, blah, blah, blah. And it said, your appointment as fourth official for the above match has been cancelled. Well, I went, oh, what happened now? Well, then he said, you are now the referee of the match. Well, I might as well have got up because I was wide awake. Now I couldn't sleep. So I'm driving to the pitch the next morning, and
so you didn't? Did you go to the meeting?
No.
So that was.
So I wouldn't have got home.
So I
wouldn't have got home till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, I'm driving to the match, and I always like to get there, especially for big matches, at least 3 hours before kickoff. Well, 2.5 to 3 hours. And I'm driving to the pitch. Now, in South Africa, even to this day, they get the headline of all the tabloid papers, and they put them in a sort of a frame, and they put them up on lampposts and poles and advertising, blah, blah, blah. And there in big block capitals, it was, Sweeney is mystery ref. And the sub-headline was, big match control in the hands of the hanging judge. And that's how I got that. And it's actually, I don't know if you can see it up there. That's it.
Yeah. Sweeney.
It's up.
So Sweeney is the mystery ref.
That's it there, yeah. And the sub-headline then, I can't zoom it in for you, but the sub-headline is, big match control in the hands of the hanging judge. And that's how I got the nickname, the hanging judge.
So why, Erroll, did you get the nickname, the hanging judge? Why do you?
See, I'm so strict, Carl. And even today, I want things done properly, not half-hearted. With me, I go into things 100% or not at all. And that has stuck with me still, even to this day. And I do radio interviews with South African Broadcasting Corporation and various other outlets, and they still call me judge.
And
I'm not a judge,
and
I'm not even a member of the. I'm not even a member of the legal profession. So,
and I take
but
it,
it's okay. It's an affectionate term. I don't mind.
And your own podcast with Keith Hackett, which we'll talk about later in the program, but that's called the hanging judge.
Yes, that's right.
Tell us about the game. Who won it? Who did you?
I went to a replay,
and
actually, South African fans.
Who played? Who were the two teams?
Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates.
So this was Man United against Liverpool, Arsenal against Spurs.
Oh, absolutely. Any of those, yeah. Actually, it was held in Ellis Park, the rugby stadium, because they didn't have good stadiums then. There was no question of the World Cup. They've all since been built.
Yeah.
But they didn't have it. So they were using the rugby stadium, and it held 65,000, and it was jammers. Now, there was a sad incident there as well, because the first game, it went to a replay the following Wednesday night, which I also did, and eventually Orlando Pirates won it. But you couldn't get tickets for love or money for this game. And there was loads of people congregating around outside the stadium, trying to buy tickets, trying to get tickets, trying to get in any way they could see the match. And there were security huts positioned here and there around the stadium. And somebody started a rumor that one of the security guys in one of these huts had tickets. And of course, everybody rushed there. And all these security guys are all armed, by the way. They're all armed. And they had to open fire to disperse the crowd, and the police as well. And 2 people were shot dead that day. Very sad.
On the day,
on the day of the final, yeah. Because they would have killed the security guy because they wouldn't listen to him that he hadn't got tickets. They were so convinced that he had. And they would try and storm the stadium as well. There was a heavy, heavy, heavy police presence. And I can tell you, we had very, very good referee security. I and my team of officials, we had 21 security people guarding us that day.
21.
And I know that for a fact. Yeah, I know that for a fact, because for those security guys to get paid, I had to sign their little chit that said they attended, and I signed 21 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
After that, I mean, you were now established. You were now
Absolutely. Yeah. I was one of, if not the top referee there. Yeah.
And for how many years did you continue to at that level?
Up to 94, the season 94-95 season. I wanted to continue, and the league stepped in and asked me would I retire early, because they wanted me to take charge of the referees. So I became director of referees for all the referees in the Premier League in South Africa, which I held up until 1998, when we came back home here.
And that was training, finding referees, training them, bringing them up to levels, showing them the level they needed to be at. And how difficult was that to attract referees in that environment? Is it easy anywhere to attract a referee?
Well, that's it. And there's such a shortage of referees around the country. In every country, there's such a shortage of referees. But it has to be remembered that a lot of the black people weren't working and still are not working. So they need those match fees to sustain them, to tide them over week from week to week. Now, that doesn't mean to say they get matches because they're not working. I would never, ever, ever do that. I mean, I had two guys, they used to travel in the one car to a match. So whether it was the referee driving or the linesman driving, didn't matter. The one car. So the one guy got expenses, and one guy sent me in an expense sheet. And I said, but didn't you travel with Enoch? Yeah. So I said, how are you entitled to expenses when you travelled in another car? You know the way. I said, no. It doesn't work that way. You're not getting money for this. You travelled with another guy. You're not getting expenses. But he needed that money, and I felt for him. But I can't begin to get involved in cooking the books because some guy needs money. Can't do that. It's wrong.
The World Cup, I'm trying to remember when that was announced. Were you still in South Africa when it was even rumoured that they were going to look for a World Cup? Or?
No, I wasn't. We left at the end of 98, and the World Cup was 2010.
Yeah, so they still hadn't even thought about it then.
No.
Could you...
Sorry, Carl. Actually, they were supposed to get it in 2006.
Okay.
And Germany got it. And it was felt then that they almost owed something, not to South Africa, but to the continent of Africa. Yeah. To a country who was prepared to host it and spend the money on it.
Mandela, did you get to meet him before any of the games? Was he introduced to you? Did you?
Yeah, I met him twice. I shook hands with him twice. Because I was now head of the referees, I had these all-access passes, and he would be in the presidential suite, of course, when he was president of South Africa. And I had access to that as well. Yeah, I met him twice. I shook hands with him twice. What a gentle, gentle soul. Talk about a gentle man. He was, I can't find the word. He was such a gentle person for somebody who could have, and some might say should have, been very, very bitter, having spent 27 years in prison on Robben Island. Such no animosity, no anger, nothing like that. In fact, at his inauguration, which Bill Clinton was at, I wasn't at it. Bill Clinton was there at it, and there was a lot of anti-white feeling, and they wanted the top brass in the defence forces, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force, and they were all white guys, and they were at the top table, and they said, Mandela's people said to him, why have you got them up here? Put them down there. And he could have stuck them away in a corner somewhere. And that would have created a lot of animosity. But he said, no. They are the head of the defence forces. They sit at the top table. And he took the heat out of a situation that could have boiled over and got very, very dangerous. And in fact, he did it with the Springbok rugby team as well when they won the World Cup in '95. And in fact, Mandela went on with the captain captain's jersey, Andre Pienaar was the captain of the South African rugby team at the time when they won the World Cup. Number 8 he was wearing. And Mandela came on, his name on the back, Mandela, and the number 8 on his jersey. So then people wanted to get rid of the Springboks because they said it's apartheid related. Why should we have that? Call them something else. And he said, no, we'll use our people to the best of our ability. And if the white guys are good and better than the black guys, then we'll use the white guys. The black guys have to bring themselves up, not the white guys bring themselves down to that level. That's the kind of man he was. It's just an awful shame he couldn't have lived another 100 years, really. Such a nice man.
Such an impact on the world, never mind just South Africa, but on the world itself. In terms of South Africa, do you get back at all, Erroll? Do you go back? Or?
Yeah, we go back. I have a lot of friends there. We have a lot of friends there. Our kids were our youngest, Shane, was he was only 6 when we brought him there, so he got all his education there, and his sisters above him, they all got educated there, and it was a very good education system that they had. Sadly, not so good today.
Okay, and football-wise, how is South Africa doing now? I mean, what's the standard of referees like for a start?
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
It's not good. But look, it's not only South Africa. You just have to look at the Premier League, and it's not good there either. I mean, some of the so-called top guys, Premier League referees, the standard is appalling, really. And Howard Webb is in charge of the referees there. He refereed the 2010 World Cup, and he made a complete mess of it. He had 14 yellow cards, world record. He could easily, justifiably, have had 2 red cards in the first half, and he gave neither.
And it would have started probably everything that came after it as well. When you look back on it. Do you miss refereeing?
I do. I really do. I came home here and the FAI were looking for a head of referees or direct, I don't know what they called it. And I applied for the job. Needless to say, I didn't get it. But I was annoyed because the people who were sitting on the panel, no disrespect to them, but they have their expertise in other areas of the game. But Paki Bonner was on the interview panel. There were 5 guys. The guy looking after the recruitment, his second name was Ryder.
HR.
Yeah, HR, that's the word, yeah. Willie Attlee was there. Willie.
Referee himself?
Yeah, Willie, the first thing that happened when I sat down and he came in and sat down, he spilled a glass of water over me, so.
That's a yellow card, I think, Erroll, is it? Is that a yellow card?
Oh, most definitely. And I knew I wasn't going to get the job because, look, I'm a straight talker, Carl. I like to tell things as they are. I don't dance around. I don't do much politics. I tell things as they are. And I knew I wasn't going to get the job because the job was advertised in the Sunday Independent, or the Irish, I think Sunday Independent. And the salary was published as well, 50 grand, 50,000 at the time. And I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. And when I got in there and went through the interview after being soaking wet from Willie Attlee's glass of water, they asked me, okay, so what salary would you be looking for? And I paused for a second and thought, hold on, they've just advertised the job at 50 grand. And now they're asking me what kind of salary I'm looking for. I mean, I wouldn't have applied for it if I didn't agree with the salary. And they were asking me what kind of salary I'm looking for. So I said, I need 60 grand. I need a car, I need a laptop, and I need a phone. Needless to say, I didn't get the job.
That was the end of that. In terms of, have you seen a difference in Ireland, in Irish football since you've come home as well? I mean, has it improved? Do you think? Is it better as a product? Is it better as a game? Is it better organised in terms of referees?
Well, I don't have much contact or inside information on the referees, but certainly from watching the football, and I do watch the Friday night games, I think the standard has improved enormously. And that probably comes about because I think most of the teams are now full-time professional. And not that that will make a team any better because they're full-time professional, not necessarily. The whole thing, and the same with refereeing. Full-time referees, and they have them in England now in the Premier League, doesn't make them any better. It's the individual themselves. Do they have the commitment? Do they have the determination? Do they have the interest in the job that they're doing? And really, the only glory, if that's the right word, that there is in refereeing is getting to cup finals. And I did the intermediate cup final here as well. I didn't get to the FAI Cup final, but I did the intermediate one in Talk Park. And then the only real glory is getting international appointments and going away. That's the only real glory, and hopefully getting to the top. But Irish referees won't get to the top of European competitions. And it's all based on the numbers of spectators that you're refereeing in front of week in and week out. When you get England, you can have them at Manchester United, 75,000, something like that. Where here, if you get 5,000 or 6,000 at a game, it's a big crowd. And they do it on that because they think if you're refereeing in front of smaller audiences or smaller spectators, that you won't have the temperament for the big games. And because of that, Irish referees, now they will get preliminary matches and get the lower, the Faroe Islands against whoever, but you would never get them Real Madrid against PSG. I'm exaggerating now, but that's basically, I think, the way it works. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. I don't know.
Would you encourage, finally, because I'm going to come back and we're going to have a second part of this interview, and thank you for joining us again. But we'll talk about modern day football in a second, in the second part, Erroll. But finally, what would you say to young people who would consider refereeing? Because there are fantastic opportunities in it. I mean, if you're a young student and you can spend the weekend refereeing matches, you're out in the fresh air, you're going to get as much money as you will working in Spar or Centre or wherever it may be, Super Value. And it is something I always say to young people, boys and girls, by the way, go and take up refereeing, have a look at it, see if you like it.
Yeah, but there's such abuse of referees now, Cathal, and it's not only difficult to retain, but it's very, very difficult to recruit. And the spectators, and believe it or not, the moms and dads standing on the line, and the managers and the coaches abusing referees. I mean, I saw recently there was a 14-year-old, Keith Hackett was telling me there was a 14-year-old abused by a parent, ran onto the field, abused the referee. 14-year-old referee. I mean, for goodness sake, the referees need to be somehow protected and immune, if that's the right word, from that kind of abuse. Now, there's not a referee out there that hasn't made a mistake, and we all do, and we will continue to make mistakes because we're human. But the problem now today, it's not only abuse on the day, but these matches are almost forensically analysed by the media, and particularly television. And just to elaborate a little bit on that, they're talking about getting rid of VAR, which we're going to talk about later. Talking about getting rid of it. And even if you do get rid of it and leave it up to the referee to make the decision, or the linesman or assistant referee as they're now called, the TV will still forensically analyse that and say, there, the linesman got it wrong. How are you going to combat that?